She signed the divorce papers in silence, asking for nothing, not a cent, not a fight. 6 months later, she didn't walk into court. She stepped off a billionaire's private jet. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. I am Mr. ZAHA. Thanks for tuning in today. A kind words from a man who has seen it all. Marriage are not mostly bed of roses. Sometime you need more of. More of what? Can't say. Continue watching, and you will surely know what to do in situations like this. Kindly hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So let's get started. The rain hammered Los Angeles that night, turning the streets of Beverly Hills into slick black mirrors reflecting the glow of mansion lights. Naomi Carter stood in the kitchen of their 12,000 square foot estate on the edge of Holmby Hills, the kind of place where old Hollywood money met new tech billions. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the manicured lawns and the distant shimmer of the city below, but tonight the view felt like a taunt. The marble island still held warmth from the roast chicken she'd prepared, Brandon's favorite, rosemary and garlic, the way his mother used to make it back in Chicago. She'd plated it at 7:30 sharp, the way she always did when he texted he'd be home early. By 9 p.m., he wasn't there. By 10, she covered the plate and slid it into the warmer. At 11:43, the front door opened. Brandon walked in smelling of Creta Ventus, cigar smoke from the Soho house, and a floral perfume she'd never bought. His tie was loosened. His crisp white shirt bore a faint lipstick mark the color of crushed rose petals. He didn't look at her. He hadn't really looked at her in months. "You're still up," he said, more observation than question. "I made dinner. I grabbed something at the club." She nodded once, the motion so small it barely stirred the air. "Of course." He loosened his cufflinks, solid gold, engraved with his initials, and dropped them onto the island with a sharp clink. "We need to talk." Naomi's heart gave one heavy thud, like a warning bell. She'd felt this coming for months, the way animals sense a storm before the sky cracks. She wiped her hands on the dish towel, even though they were dry. "About what?" she asked. Voice leveled, he pulled an envelope from his suit jacket. Thick cream stock, the kind high-end family law firms use when they want the weight to register before words do. Divorce. The word landed like wet concrete. Heavy. Irrevocable. Naomi stared at the envelope but didn't reach for it. "You're serious?" "I've been thinking about this for a while." "How long?" "Long enough." She let out a small, bitter laugh that tasted like metal. "And the lipstick on your collar? Was that part of the long thinking?" Brandon's jaw tightened. "Don't make this ugly, Naomi. I'm not the one making it anything." He exhaled sharply through his nose. "Look, we've grown apart. You know that. The firm is exploding. New fund closing next month. Global LPs. The works. I need someone who can keep up with the pace. You're happy here. Hosting dinners. Redecorating. Waiting." Each word sliced cleanly. She felt them open old wounds without drawing visible blood. "I waited because you asked me to," she said quietly. "When we got married, you said you needed a home base. Someone who wouldn't distract you. Someone who'd hold everything steady while you built the empire. And you did. You were perfect at it." He almost sounded appreciative. "But perfect for then isn't perfect for now." Naomi glanced at her left hand. The 5-carat diamond he'd given her 8 years ago still caught the pendant lights. Flawless. The kind of ring that turned heads at Spago. She'd never taken it off. "Not once. So that's it?" she asked. 8 years and you're done?" "I'm not done with life. I'm done with this version of it." Something inside her shifted. Something tender that had clung stubbornly finally beginning to wither. "Do you love her?" she asked. Brandon hesitated. That pause said everything. "Yes," he said finally. Naomi nodded slowly. "Then you should marry her." He blinked. "What?" "You heard me. I expected more. More fighting, more tears, more begging." She met his eyes for the first time that night. "I've spent 8 years loving someone who stopped seeing me. I'm tired, Brandon. I'm tired of being invisible in my own marriage." He stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time in years. She reached for the envelope, opened it with steady fingers, scanned the pages. No fault. Clean. She would keep nothing. No spousal support. No share of the venture capital carry. No claim on the house, the fleet of Teslas and Porsches, the vacation homes in Aspen and Maui. Nothing. Brandon frowned. "You're not even going to ask for something?" "Why would I?" she said softly. "If I take anything from you now, Every time I look at it, I'll remember I had to fight for scraps from a man who no longer wants me. I'd rather walk away clean. He opened his mouth, closed it. She signed where the post-it flags indicated. 3 signatures. Each one felt like severing a vein. When she finished, she slid the papers back across the island. "That's it?" he asked, almost incredulous. "That's it." She turned, walked upstairs, packed one medium Louis Vuitton suitcase. Clothes she actually wore, her mother's pearl earrings, the worn leather journal she'd kept since grad school, a few books, her favorite pair of worn Allbirds. No jewelry he'd bought. No photos. Nothing that carried his imprint. Downstairs again, she paused at the front door. Brandon stood in the same spot, papers in hand, looking strangely smaller. "Where will you go?" he asked. "I'll figure it out." "You don't have to leave tonight." "Yes," she said. "I do." She opened the door. Rain slapped her face like cold recognition. "Naomi," she didn't turn. The door closed with a soft, final click. She walked down the long driveway in the downpour, suitcase wheels rumbling over wet flagstones. The security gate swung open automatically, as though even the house was eager to be rid of her. Outside, on the street, she stood under a street lamp for a long moment, letting the water soak through her cashmere sweater until it clung like regret. Then she raised her hand, and Uber pulled up. The driver glanced at her wet clothes, but said nothing. "Anywhere dry," she told him, but he nodded. "Hop in." She climbed in, suitcase on the floorboard, surrounded by the faint scent of air freshener and someone else's late-night tacos. No one stared. No one asked. For the first time in years, she felt almost invisible in the kindest way. The car merged into the rain-slick 405, heading south toward nothing in particular. Behind her, in the Holmby Hills mansion, Brandon stood alone in the kitchen staring at the covered plate of roast chicken now gone cold. He opened the warmer anyway, took a bite that it tasted like ash. The next morning, Naomi woke in a budget motel room off La Cienega, the kind with thin walls and the smell of old carpet shampoo. Sunlight cut through crooked blinds. She lay still for a long time, listening to the city wake. Traffic roared, distant sirens, a neighbor's muffled TV. She felt hollow, but hollow, she discovered, was different from shattered. She rose, showered under weak pressure, dressed in the only clean blouse she'd packed, and opened her laptop. An old MacBook Brandon once called vintage. She logged into her neglected LinkedIn. For years, she'd posted nothing. She'd been wife of Brandon Carter, founding partner at Apex Capital. That had been her identity. Now she typed a new headline. Naomi Carter, seeking new beginnings, no one would get it yet. That was okay. She scrolled old messages. One from 3 years ago caught her eye. Robert Chin. Subject: Your white paper on community solar microgrids for underserved neighborhoods. She remembered it vaguely. She'd written the paper during a rare, quiet month, back when Brandon still pretended to skim the things she handed him. Robert Chun, the Hong Kong-born, Silicon Valley-raised clean energy billionaire who'd built Chin Renewables from a Stanford dorm room, had replied personally, "Naomi, this is brilliant. Practical, scalable, humane. If you're ever interested in turning theory into deployment, call me." RC. She'd never called. She stared at the message for a long minute. Then she clicked reply. Subject: Your white paper. Dear Mr. Chun, I hope this finds you well. 3 years ago, you were kind enough to read something I wrote. A lot has changed. That I'm no longer married to Brandon Carter, that I have no job, no savings, and no permanent address. But I still believe in those ideas. If the offer still stands, even in the smallest way, I'd like to speak. Respectfully, Naomi. She hit send before doubt could stop her. Then she closed the laptop, stood, and looked around the dingy room. She had nothing. And somehow, that felt like the start of everything. 2 days later, her phone buzzed while she was wiping down tables at a small diner in Culver City in exchange for meals and a few bucks under the table. Unknown number. She dried her hands on her apron and answered. Naomi Carter? The voice was calm, lightly accented with California polish over something unmistakably sharp. Yes. Robert Chun. You emailed. Her heart slammed. Yes. I did. I'm in LA for the next 72 hours. Can you meet me at my office in Santa Monica tomorrow, 9 a.m.? She glanced at the greasy grill, the cracked vinyl booths, the apron around her waist. I'll be there. Good. Bring your white paper. And any new ideas you've had since?" He hung up. Naomi stood frozen, suds forgotten. For the first time in months, she smiled. Small, tentative, genuine. The next morning, she borrowed a friend's blazer and slacks, ironed them carefully, took the expo line across town, and walked the last mile to the sleek glass building on Ocean Avenue. Shin Renewables occupied the top floors, exposed concrete, living green walls, people moving with quiet intensity. No ties, no posturing. Everyone looked alive. Robert Shin waited near the windows overlooking the Pacific. Shorter than she'd pictured, maybe 5'8", but carrying the coiled energy of someone who'd clawed his way from nothing. "Naomi," he said, extending a hand. No wedding ring, no flashy watch, just a simple Patek that probably cost more than her old condo. "Mr. Chun." "Robert, sit." Saturday, he didn't waste time. "I read your email. I also had someone pull the public filings. Divorce finalized 2 weeks ago. No contest. You asked for nothing." She lifted her chin. "I didn't want anything tied to strings." "Admirable. Maybe foolish, but admirable." She almost laughed. He leaned forward. "Tell me why you're here." "Because I'm done waiting for permission to matter." He studied her for a long beat. Then he pushed a folder across the table. "Pilot project. 3 underserved neighborhoods in South LA and the Inland Empire. Community solar plus battery storage plus equitable access model. We need someone who gets both the tech and the people who'll use it. Someone who won't flinch at tough conversations in community centers." She opened the folder. Maps, specs, timelines. Her pulse quickened. "You want me to lead it?" "I want you to own it. Sweat equity. 20% stake if we hit KPIs. Salary to start. Modest but livable. If it scales, you become very wealthy. If it flops, you walk with experience and no debt." She looked up. "Why me?" "Because 3 years ago you wrote something that made me think. Last week you wrote something that made me believe you're ready to build." She swallowed. "I have nothing to lose." "That," Robert said, "is the most dangerous and most powerful place anyone can stand." He stood. "Take 24 hours. Think." "I don't need 24 hours." He raised an eyebrow. "I'm in." A slow smile spread. "Welcome to Chin Renewables, Naomi Carter." He extended his hand again. This time she shook it like someone claiming the rest of her life. Over the next 5 months, she vanished into the work the way others vanish into grief. She lived in a small company apartment in Santa Monica. Nothing fancy, but clean, safe, hers. She woke at 5 a.m., devoured technical reports until her eyes stung, drove beat-up company vans to project sites, sat in folding chairs in rec centers negotiating with community leaders, listened to single mothers explain how blackouts meant no fridge for insulin or no lights for kids' homework. She listened. She learned. She iterated. She fought. The first microgrid came online in week 18 when the switch flipped and 50 homes lit up without diesel fumes or extortionate bills. A little boy ran out holding a glowing LED bulb like he'd captured lightning. Naomi cried that night. Quiet tears in the back of the van as they drove back under a sky full of stars. Not because it was finished, because it was just starting, and because, for the first time in years, she felt seen, not by a husband, not by status, but by her own work changing real lives. Word spread fast in the clean tech world. Investors took notice. Robert started pulling her into bigger rooms. She spoke at panels in San Francisco. She pitched to impact funds. She wore simple linen dresses and no makeup and still commanded rooms because she spoke about people, not just panels and megawatts. 6 months after the divorce finalized, Apex Capital, Brandon's firm, hit a wall. The big fundraise imploded when key limited partners pulled after a whisper campaign about one of his new partner's ethics. Desperate, he filed a motion to reopen the settlement, claiming Naomi had hidden assets, a small joint brokerage account from early marriage days, one she'd completely forgotten, that needed revaluation. The court date was set in downtown LA's Superior Court. Brandon smiled when his attorney told him. "She's got nothing," he said. "She'll fold." He had no idea she was already cleared for takeoff. The morning of the hearing broke clear and unforgiving over downtown Los Angeles, the kind of California sun that bounced off glass skyscrapers and made every surface feel like it was under interrogation. Brandon Carter arrived at the Stanley Moss Courthouse on Hill Street 20 minutes early. His black Range Rover autobiography glided to the curb at the secure drop-off, The driver opened the door. Brandon stepped out in a tailored navy Brioni suit, open-collar white shirt, no tie, the look of someone who didn't need to prove power anymore. His new girlfriend, ZAHA, stayed in the passenger seat scrolling TikTok, but he waved her off. This was unfinished business. Old business, he adjusted his cufflinks. The same gold ones Naomi had watched him drop on the marble island that rainy night, and walked through security flanked by two attorneys in matching charcoal suits. Heads turned in the lobby. Whispers trailed. That's Brandon Carter. Apex Capital, the divorce guy. He absorbed the attention like oxygen. Inside Department 74 the air was cool and stale, scented with old files and fresh coffee from the clerk station. Marble floors echoed under Italian loafers. He took his seat in the front row, legs crossed, fingers tapping once on the wooden rail before going still. His lead counsel, Elena Vasquez, leaned in. Everything's buttoned up. The joint brokerage account, $180,000 at marriage, never disclosed in the original settlement. Judge will see non-disclosure. We'll push for at least half, maybe more if we frame it as equitable hardship. Brandon nodded once. Good. I want this wrapped today. He checked his Apple Watch. 9:42 a.m. hearing at 10:00. Naomi was late. Or maybe she wasn't coming. That possibility pleased him more than it should have. He pictured her stuck in traffic on the 10, riding a metro bus, clutching a faded tote, realizing too late she couldn't afford counsel. She'd walked away with zero. She'd leave with zero again. The bailiff called order. All rise. Everyone stood. Judge Maria Delgado entered. Late 50s, sharp eyes behind rimless glasses, reputation for slicing through drama like surgical steel. Case number 25 SDC 04572. Carter versus Carter. Motion to reopen judgment of dissolution. Brandon's side rose. No one rose opposite. MS. Vasquez cleared her throat. Your Honor, the respondent, Naomi Carter, has not yet appeared. A low, turbine growl cut her off. Not traffic. Engines. Deep, smooth, unmistakable whine of jet engines spooling down. Close. Too close. The courtroom's tall windows overlooked the approach path to Van Nuys Airport's south side, where private jets sometimes taxied near the Civic Center for quick executive turnarounds. Everyone knew the sound. No one expected it now. Heads swiveled. Brandon frowned. Through the glass, visible above the courthouse roofline, a matte-black Gulfstream G700 rolled to a stop on the distant apron. Thin silver stripe. Tail number. NRC1. Chun Renewables livery. Subtle but instantly recognizable to anyone who read TechCrunch or Bloomberg Green. The air stairs descended. A figure appeared at the top. Even from this distance, even through polarized windows, Brandon knew. Naomi. She wore a tailored ivory pantsuit. Clean lines, no logos, but the fabric and cut screamed quiet money. Low block heels. Hair in neat twists pulled into a low bun. Only jewelry. Her mother's pearl studs catching the light. A slim Hermes portfolio under one arm. She descended slowly, deliberately. Behind her, Robertson followed. Dark polo, chinos, no security detail, just calm authority. A black Cadillac Escalade ESV waited on the tarmac. They climbed in without rush. The SUV headed toward the courthouse side entrance. Inside Department 74, silence turned electric. Brandon's face had gone blank. The mask he wore when a term sheet went south, and he refused to show panic. His fingers gripped the rail until the knuckles blanched. The bailiff cleared his throat. Your Honor, the respondent has arrived. The double doors at the rear opened. Naomi entered alone. No attorney. No paralegal. Just her. She walked down the center aisle with measured steps, heels clicking softly on marble. Every eye tracked her. She stopped at the respondent's table, set her portfolio down, and looked directly at the bench. Good morning, Your Honor. Judge Delgado peered over her glasses. Miss Carter. Miss Carter now, yes. You are appearing pro se? For today, yes. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Brandon stared. His mouth parted slightly, then closed. The judge nodded. Proceed. Ms. Vasquez, your motion. Vasquez stood, rhythm slightly off. Your Honor, the petitioner seeks to reopen the marital settlement on grounds of material nondisclosure. A joint brokerage account valued at approximately $180,000 at dissolution was not declared by the respondent. Naomi raised a hand. Calm, polite. Your Honor, may I? The judge inclined her head. Naomi opened her portfolio, withdrew a single slim document, and handed it to the bailiff, who passed it forward. This is a certified statement from Charles Schwab dated 2 weeks post-marriage. The account in question, ending 4,782, was funded entirely from proceeds of a clean energy consulting contract I completed before our wedding. My husband's name was added only as courtesy. I never accessed it after marriage. Upon separation, I instructed Schwab to freeze it pending any claim. It remains frozen. Current balance, with interest, is $214,600. She paused, letting the words settle. Additionally, she continued, voice even, I have affidavits from the branch manager and my former CPA confirming no withdrawals, no transfers, no interest diverted post-separation. Brandon's attorney blinked. Brandon himself had gone very still. Naomi met her ex-husband's eyes for the first time since that rainy night in Holmby Hills. I didn't conceal anything, Brandon. I forgot. There's a difference. The courtroom was so quiet the wall clock ticked audibly. Judge Delgado scanned the document. This appears in order. Ms. Vasquez. Vasquez swallowed. We'll need time to verify authenticity. You'll have it, the judge said dryly. But absent evidence of dissipation or intentional concealment, this motion appears meritless. Ms. Carter, anything further? Naomi hesitated, just a heartbeat. Then she looked at Brandon again. I don't want the money, she said quietly. I never did. The account can be transferred to him in full, today, as final closure. I ask only that the motion be withdrawn and this matter ended. A collective gasp from the gallery. Brandon's face crumpled. Not anger, but something closer to bewilderment. Then raw-pained, he stood abruptly. Your Honor, may I address the court? The judge raised an eyebrow. This is highly irregular, Mr. Carter. Please. A long beat. Granted. Briefly, Brandon stepped forward. The suit suddenly looked too large on him. He looked at Naomi as though seeing her for the first time in 8 years. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. I thought you were hiding something. I don't know what I thought. I was angry. Embarrassed. The firm is bleeding cash. I needed anything. A win. He swallowed hard. But you didn't fight. You didn't take. Even now you're giving it back. His eyes glistened. Why? Naomi's throat worked. She spoke so softly only the front rows caught it. Because I loved you once, Brandon. Enough to want you happy, even if it wasn't with me. Even if it cost me everything. I didn't want our story to end in courtrooms and resentment. I wanted it to end with dignity. Silence stretched like taut wire. Brandon's shoulders began to shake. He turned to the judge. I withdraw the motion. I withdraw everything. I was wrong. He looked back at Naomi. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so damn sorry. Tears slipped down his face. Unhidden, unashamed, Naomi's own eyes filled, but she didn't let them fall. She nodded once. Small. Final. The judge tapped the gavel lightly. Motion withdrawn by consent. Case dismissed. Court is adjourned. People began to rise, murmur, gather belongings. But Brandon didn't move. Neither did Naomi. They stood facing each other across the narrow aisle, the space between them feeling simultaneously infinite and intimate. Robert Chun appeared discreetly at the rear doors, waiting. Naomi glanced at him, then back at Brandon. I have to go, she said. Wait. She paused. Brandon took one step closer. Voice raw. Can we talk? Not here. Not like this. Naomi searched his face. Really searched. For the first time in years, she saw regret. She saw the man she'd once loved. She saw someone who might finally see her. After a long moment, she nodded. Tomorrow, she said. My office. 11 a.m. Brandon exhaled like a man surfacing from deep water. Thank you. She collected her portfolio and walked toward the doors that as she passed. Their fingers brushed, just the lightest contact. Neither pulled away immediately. Outside, the Gulf Stream waited, engines already spooling up. Robert fell into step beside her. You okay? He asked quietly. She looked back once, at Brandon still standing in the aisle, watching her leave. I think so, she whispered. She climbed into the waiting Escalade. The doors closed. The vehicle pulled away toward the air stairs. Behind them, in the emptying courtroom, Brandon sank onto the bench and buried his face in his hands. For the first time in his life, winning felt exactly like losing, and losing felt like the only path that might lead him back to her. The day after the courthouse hearing felt endless, stretched thin like a wire humming with tension, ready to snap at the slightest pressure. Naomi sat alone in her office on the top floor of the Chin Renewables building in Santa Monica, staring out at the Pacific. The ocean rolled in slow, indifferent gray under a marine layer that refused to burn off. From up here the city looked almost peaceful, freeways snaking like rivers, palm trees swaying, the distant silhouette of the Santa Monica Pier barely visible through the haze. She hadn't slept much. The image of Brandon's face in court kept replaying. The way his composure cracked, the tears he didn't try to hide, the whispered, "I'm so damn sorry." Words she'd once dreamed of hearing. Now they felt like echoes from a parallel life. Her phone buzzed. "Robert, you sure about letting him come here tomorrow?" The text read. She typed back, "I need to hear him out. For both of us." A pause. Then, "Be careful. History has a way of repeating unless you break the cycle." She set the phone face down and leaned back in her chair. The office was spare and intentional. White walls, a single Monstera plant thriving in the corner, blueprints and community impact reports pinned to a corkboard. No family photos. No distractions. But memories didn't need pictures. She closed her eyes and let the past 5 months flood in 0.5 months earlier. The day after she signed the papers, Naomi had left Robert's office with a signed offer letter in her bag and something close to fire in her chest. The pilot project wasn't glamorous. No TED stages, no Forbes covers. It was community centers in South LA, rec rooms in the Inland Empire, long drives on the 110 and 10 freeways, with a beat-up company Ford Transit full of spec sheets and hope. Her first week, sitting in plastic folding chairs in a Watts Community Center, listening to elderly residents explain how PG&E bills ate half their Social Security checks, how brownouts meant no oxygen machines or refrigerated insulin. Young moms talked about kids doing homework by phone flashlight because the power company shut off service again. She didn't pitch solutions right away. She listened. "I know the tech," she told one group, "but you know your lives. Teach me what actually works here." They did. She redesigned the microgrid layout 4 times, accounting for heat waves that fried batteries, gang territories that made cable runs complicated, even the routes food trucks took so residents could charge phones while waiting in line. She worked brutal hours, dawn site visits, afternoons crunching load profiles on her laptop in a rented co-working space, evenings on Zoom with engineers in Palo Alto and community organizers in Compton Point one night. After a particularly brutal zoning meeting, where a council member accused her of gentrifying sunlight, she collapsed onto the futon in her small company apartment and cried, silent, exhausted tears. "Why am I doing this?" she whispered to the ceiling. "Because no one can take this from you," the answer came. "Because it's yours." The next morning she went back, apologized for pushing too hard, listened harder, adjusted again. By month 2, the first panels were mounted on rooftops in Watts and Fontana. A blockchain-enabled pay-as-you-go app she helped design let residents pay small amounts via Venmo or Cash App, unlocking power in daily increments they could actually afford to switch on day. A small crowd gathered under string lights in a church parking lot. Naomi flipped the master breaker. LED bulbs flickered to life inside homes. A little girl ran out holding a glowing nightlight shaped like a unicorn, eyes wide with wonder. Naomi cried again that night. Quiet tears in the back of the van as they crawled through traffic on the 405. Not because the project was done, because it was alive. And because, for the first time since the divorce, she felt powerful in her own skin. Word spread through impact investing circles. Robert started bringing her to bigger tables, panels at Stanford, pitches to family offices in Bel Air. She spoke plainly. Energy justice isn't charity. It's infrastructure. Build it with people, not for them. Applause followed. Term sheets arrived. Her equity stake began vesting faster. She bought her first new outfit in years, a simple navy blazer and trousers that made her feel capable without trying too hard. Investors noticed 6 months after the papers were signed, Apex Capital hit turbulence. The flagship fundraise collapsed when 2 major institutional investors pulled after ethics questions surfaced around one of Brandon's newest partners. Cash burn accelerated. Bridge loans loomed in desperation. He filed the motion to reopen, claiming the forgotten joint brokerage account constituted concealed community property. He told his attorney. She walked away with nothing. She'll fold. He had no idea how wrong he was. Back in the present, Naomi opened her eyes. The clock read 10:45 a.m. Brandon would arrive in 15 minutes. She stood, smoothed her blouse, poured water into a glass from a filtered pitcher on the credenza. Her hands were steady. That was new. Down in the lobby, Brandon paced near the reception desk. He'd arrived early, too early. ZAHA had offered to drive him. He'd declined. This is something I need to face alone. The drive over the 10 had been torture. Every billboard, every traffic jam reminded him of her. How she used to sit shotgun, playlist on shuffle, laughing at his terrible singing. Now the passenger seat stayed empty. He kept seeing her descending those air stairs. Composed, untouchable. The woman he married had been warm, accommodating, always ready to support. This version had built an empire while he watched his crumble. How had he missed her strength? How had he convinced himself she was holding him back? Regret had started small, the night she left in the rain. He'd eaten the cold chicken alone, gone to bed in a king-size bed that felt like a grave. At first he drowned it in work, in ZAHA's laughter, in late nights at Soho House. But the distractions faded. Apex began bleeding. The scandal hit the tech press. Investors ghosted. He blamed the market, the partners, bad timing. In quiet moments, alone in the Holmby Hills house, he blamed himself that he found her old journal once, buried in a guest room drawer. Pages of notes, sketches for community solar models, ideas for equitable financing, reflections on energy access as a human right. She'd shown him drafts years ago. What do you think? She'd asked. Cool concept, he'd said, barely glancing. Focus on the home front. I need you here. He'd clipped her wings without noticing. Now she flew. The elevator dinged. He stepped in, heart hammering. At the 32nd floor, the receptionist smiled. Mr. Carter? Ms. Carter is ready for you. Ms. Carter. The title stung fresh every time Naomi's office door opened. She stood there, expression calm but guarded. Brandon. Naomi. He stepped inside. The door closed with a soft click. They stood awkwardly for a second, like strangers at a wake. Sit, she said. He did. The chair was modern, comfortable. Everything here screamed quiet success. You look incredible, he said, the words clumsy. Thank you. Silence settled. Heavy. He leaned forward. Yesterday in court. I didn't expect. The jet? A faint smile. Robert insists. It saves hours in traffic. Robert Chun. The name tasted sour. How did that happen? She sat across from him, hands folded. I emailed him the day after the divorce. He remembered a white paper I wrote years ago. Brandon nodded slowly. The microgrid one. You showed me. You called it interesting. Her tone was even, but the memory carried weight. He winced. I was blind. Yes. Another silence. Why did you withdraw the motion? She asked quietly. Because when I saw you walk in, it all hit at once. How wrong I was. How much I threw away. She looked out the window. Threw away what, Brandon? The account? The house? Me? You? His voice cracked. Always you. She didn't respond. He pressed on. The firm is in freefall. ZAHA, it's over. I ended it last night. Naomi's brows lifted slightly. I'm sorry. Don't be. She was never the answer. She was just noise. Then what was the real problem? Me. He met her eyes. I got addicted to the chase, the deals, the headlines, the validation. I forgot what actually mattered. And what mattered? You. Us. The way you made everything feel grounded. Real. She stood and walked to the window. Do you know what I did the day after I left? He shook his head. I checked into a motel off La Cienega. Slept on scratchy sheets. Ate vending machine snacks. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was auditioning for someone else's life. He swallowed hard. I never meant to make you feel that way. But you did. Soft, not accusatory. Little by little. Stay home. Don't worry about your ideas. I need you here. I believed you. Until I couldn't anymore. I'm sorry, he said again. It felt smaller every time. She turned back. Why now? Because I showed up in a private jet? Because I'm suddenly someone who matters in rooms you used to own? No, fierce. Because seeing you reminded me who you've always been. Brilliant. Resilient. I was too arrogant to notice. Tears pricked her eyes. She blinked them away. I built something real here, Brandon. Without you. For me. For people who needed it. I know. And I'm proud of you. His voice broke. God, I'm so proud. The subtext hung thick. Unspoken questions. Is there room for us? Do I even want there to be? Her phone buzzed. She glanced. I have a call in 20. He stood. Can we keep talking? Dinner? Somewhere neutral. She considered him for a long moment. Tomorrow, she said finally. The old spot. Shutters on the beach in Santa Monica. 7 p.m. Relief washed over his face. I'll be there. He moved toward the door, paused. Naomi, thank you. For yesterday. For the account. For this conversation. She nodded once. Don't make me regret it. He left. The door closed softly. I in the elevator down. Brandon leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Hope flickered. Fragile, but alive. Upstairs, Naomi exhaled shakily and sank back into her chair. Robert knocked. Entered without waiting. How'd it go? He's trying. Or at least saying the right things. And you? Conflicted. She touched her chest where old scars still ached. Very conflicted. He nodded. You've earned the right to take your time. She gave a small smile. Thanks. As he left, she opened her laptop to the next project deck. Work anchored her. But thoughts of Brandon lingered. His regret, his eyes, the accidental brush of fingers in court. The stakes inside her rose. Forgive and risk being hurt again? Or walk away safe, but solitary? Outside, the marine layer finally burned off. Sunlight hit the ocean, turning it silver. Tension coiled tighter. Tomorrow would decide. That night Brandon drove back to the empty Holmby Hills house. Rain started again, soft, then pounding. Just like the night she left, he parked in the garage, sat in the dark car listening to water drum on the roof. Memories crashed in. Their wedding reception at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Her in ivory lace, laughing as they cut the cake under chandeliers. Forever, she whispered, early days. Her editing his pitch decks at 2 a.m., celebrating the first fund close with takeout sushi and cheap champagne. Then success accelerated. He changed. Shorter temper. Longer absences. Not now, Naomi. You don't get it. The affair, a VC conference in Miami. Zara's easy smile. His weakness, the divorce, her signing without argument. I'd rather walk away clean. He'd mistaken her grace for defeat. Now he saw it for what it was, strength to eye in the kitchen. He opened the warmer, empty. No roast chicken waiting. He poured bourbon, sat at the island, scrolled his phone. A headline popped up. Chin Renewables closes $75 million Series C, led by Naomi Carter. He clicked. Photo of her shaking hands with investors at a rooftop event downtown. Smiling. Radiant. Jealousy twisted, not of Robert, but of the life she'd built without him. He set the glass down hard. I have to fix this, he muttered to the empty room. Tomorrow. Shutters on the beach. His last real chance. Naomi, on her balcony in Santa Monica, sipped herbal tea and watched the waves. City lights glittered along the coast. She thought of the families in Watts whose lights stayed on because of her work. Could she bring light back into their shared history? Forgiveness whispered. Redemption tugged. But trust? That was the hardest bridge to rebuild. She texted a close friend, meeting Brandon tomorrow night. Pray for wisdom. Reply came fast. You've got this. Lead with your heart, but protect it too. She smiled faintly. Set the phone down. Rain tapped the sliding glass. Familiar, almost comforting. The tension built. Tomorrow would either begin healing or end any possibility of it. The sun was setting over Santa Monica Beach in a blaze of orange and violet when Naomi pulled into the valet line at Shutters on the beach. The hotel's white exterior glowed against the Pacific, waves rolling in with steady rhythm below the wooden boardwalk. She wore a simple emerald green dress. Nothing flashy, just something that made her feel like herself, and left her hair down in loose twists. No armor tonight, just honesty. She walked through the lobby, past the scent of eucalyptus and sea salt, and stepped out onto the terrace. Their old table waited near the railing. Ocean view. Candle already lit. 2 glasses of sparkling water waiting. Brandon had reserved it. She knew because the hostess had said, Mr. Carter asked for your favorite spot. She sat, hands folded in her lap, watching the horizon where sky met water. 8 years ago, right here, he dropped to one knee with a ring box trembling in his hand. Forever starts tonight, he'd said, voice thick with nerves and love. She'd said yes without hesitation. Now forever felt like a question mark. Footsteps on the deck. She turned. Brandon approached in dark jeans and a charcoal button-down. No suit, no pretense. He carried a small bouquet of white peonies, her favorite, and set them gently on the table before sitting across from her. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." The waiter appeared, took their orders, grilled salmon for her, steak for him, same as always, then disappeared. Silence settled between them, broken only by the crash of waves and distant laughter from other tables. Brandon spoke first. "Thank you for coming." "I almost didn't," she admitted. "But I need to know, is this real? Or is it just guilt talking?" He looked straight at her. "It's real, and it's terrifying." She waited as he exhaled. "I rehearsed this 100 times in the car. None of it sounded right. So I'll just say it plain. I was wrong. About everything. Start with ZAHA," she said quietly. He nodded. "It started at a conference in Miami. She was easy. No expectations. No history. She laughed at my jokes, stroked my ego when the deals got tough. I told myself it was harmless. Then it wasn't. Did you love her?" "No, immediate. I loved the version of myself I saw in her eyes. The successful, untouchable VC guy. With you, I saw the real me. The scared kid from Chicago who still worried he'd never be enough. And I hated that mirror." Naomi's throat tightened. "So you pushed me away to keep the reflection you liked?" "Yes." His voice cracked. "I convinced myself you were holding me back. That if I had someone who matched my pace, I'd finally feel like I'd made it. But the higher I climbed, the emptier it got." She looked down at her hands. "I waited for you to come home every night. I edited your pitch decks at 3 a.m. I believed in your dream more than you did sometimes. And you still chose her." "I know." Tears welled. "I know." The food arrived. Neither touched it. Brandon pushed his plate aside. "The firm is circling the drain. The scandal scared off half our LPs. We're burning cash. I could lose everything I built." She met his eyes. "And you think that's why I'm here? To bail you out?" "No, fierce. I'm telling you because I want you to know I'm not here for money or connections. I'm here because I can't breathe without you in my life. I tried. I failed." She felt the old ache flare, love mixed with betrayal. "You hurt me so deeply, Brandon. You made me question if I was ever enough. You were always more than enough." He reached across the table, palm up. "I was the one who wasn't." She stared at his hand. Memories flooded. His fingers laced with hers on this very terrace. Promises whispered against her skin. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed gently, trembling. "I still love you," he whispered. "I never stopped. I just forgot how to show it. How to be the man you deserved." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I love you too. That's why this hurts so much." He stood, walked around the table, knelt beside her chair, like the proposal years ago, but this time without a ring, only raw vulnerability. "I'm not asking you to forget what I did," he said. "I'm asking for a chance to earn your trust again. Counseling. Time apart if you need it. Slow. No pressure. Just let me prove I can change." She searched his face, the lines around his eyes deeper now, the arrogance gone, replaced by something humble and aching. A wave crashed louder below, salt spray misting the air. "I forgive you," she said at last, voice barely above the ocean. "But forgiveness isn't a reset. It's a beginning, and beginnings are scary." He nodded, tears falling freely now. "I know. I'm scared too." She pulled him up, stood with him. They faced the ocean together, hands still linked. "I built a life without you," she said. "A good one. I can't go back to being the supportive wife in the shadows. I don't want that. Urgent. I want a partner. Equals. You running Chin Renewables, changing lives. Me fixing what I broke at Apex. Maybe even partnering on impact deals someday. Together, but separate orbits that cross." She turned to him. "You'd really do that? Step back from being the center of everything. For you?" "Yes." He cupped her face. "I already started. I fired the partner who caused the scandal. I'm restructuring the fund with stricter ethics screens. It's not perfect yet, but it's real." She studied him a long moment. Then she rose on her toes and kissed him, soft at first, then deeper, tasting salt from their tears and sea air. When they broke apart, foreheads touching, she whispered, "We try." Slowly. Honestly. No more hiding. He exhaled like a man released from chains. "Yes." They sat again, finally ate a little, talked, really talked, about the past 6 months. Her projects in Watson, Fontana. His sleepless nights. The way they'd both grown in the wreckage, as the sky darkened and stars appeared over the water, Brandon said, "There's one more thing." She raised a brow. "Apex needs bridge capital. Badly. I was going to pitch some impact funds, but I won't if you say no. I don't want you to feel used." She considered. "Talk to Robert. I'll tell him you're serious about changing. But the decision is his." Gratitude flooded his face. "Thank you." They walked the boardwalk after dinner, hand in hand, bare feet in cool sand. No rush. No promises beyond tonight that I tee her car. He kissed her again. Longer, slower. "This is our new start," he murmured against her lips. She smiled through fresh tears. "Yes." He watched her drive away, hope burning bright in his chest. But later, alone in the Range Rover heading back to Holmby Hills, doubt crept in. Could he really sustain the change? Would she ever fully trust again? He gripped the wheel tighter. He would. He had to. Meanwhile, Naomi pulled into her Santa Monica apartment, heart full and bruised at once. She texted Robert. "Met Brandon. We're trying again." Slowly. His reply, "You sure?" She typed, scared. "But yes." Then she opened her laptop, pulled up tomorrow's investor deck. Work waited. Life waited. But for the first time in months, love waited too. Fragile, tentative, real. The climax crested. Forgiveness spoken. Choice made. Paths intersecting once more. Redemption wasn't a single moment. It was the beginning of many. The weeks following that dinner at Shutters on the beach unfolded like a careful dance. Steps forward, pauses for breath, occasional stumbles, but always moving towards something solid. Naomi woke early the next morning in her Santa Monica apartment, sunlight streaming through the blinds onto her bed. For the first time in months, the emptiness beside her didn't sting quite as much. Brandon's kiss lingered in her mind. Warm, real, laced with the promise of effort. But promises were just words until backed by action. She dressed for work, tailored slacks, a crisp blouse, low heels. At Chin Renewables, she dove into the day's agenda. A strategy session for expanding the microgrids to Oakland and Fresno, where underserved communities faced rolling blackouts amid wildfires. Robert joined her in the conference room, slides projected on the wall. "You look lighter," he observed mid-pitch. She smiled faintly. "We're trying. Brandon and I." He nodded, no judgment. "As long as it doesn't distract from this." He gestured to the projections. Millions in potential impact, thousands of homes powered sustainably. "It won't," she assured him. "This is my foundation now." By noon, her phone buzzed. "Brandon, lunch?" "I'm nearby." She hesitated, then typed. "Sure. Meet at the office cafe downstairs. 12:30. He arrived on time. A small victory, with a simple salad bowl from Sweet Green. They sat at a corner table overlooking Ocean Avenue, traffic humming below. "I started therapy this morning," he said without preamble. "Individual sessions. The counselor specializes in high-stress executives." I told her everything. Naomi's fork paused midair. "Really? Really? And I'm setting up couples counseling for us? If you're open." She set her fork down. "I am. But we go slow. Slow as you need." They talked logistics. No grand gestures. Just practical steps. He shared updates on Apex. He brought in a new ethics advisor. Trimmed the portfolio to focus on sustainable tech investments. "Inspired by you," he admitted. She felt a warmth spread. Pride, not just for him, but for the ripple of her influence. That night, they met for a walk on the beach. No dinner, no plans. Just bare feet in sand, hands brushing occasionally. He listened as she described a tough negotiation with a Fresno city councilor. She asked about his day without judgment. Small moments built trust. 2 months in, the rebuilding hit its first real test. Apex's cash crunch deepened. Brandon confided over coffee one morning. "We're down to 3 months runway. I need to pitch bridge funding." "Talk to Robert," Naomi said, as she'd promised. "But be honest. No sales pitch." He nodded. "I will." The meeting happened in Chin Renewables' boardroom, neutral ground. Naomi sat in, silent observer. Brandon laid it out. The mistakes, the scandal, his pivot toward impact-driven deals. "I'm not asking for a handout," he said to Robert. "I'm asking for a partner who sees the potential in redemption." Robert leaned back, arms crossed. "Why should I trust you won't repeat the past?" "Because I lost everything that mattered once," Brandon replied, glancing at Naomi. I won't again. A long pause. Robert extended a hand. Small investment to start. Prove yourself, and we scale. Brandon shook it. Relief etched his face. Later, alone with Naomi, he hugged her tight. Thank you for believing in me. She pulled back. I serious. I believe in us. But this is your work too. He nodded. I know. The investment stabilized Apex. Brandon worked longer hours, not the destructive kind, but focused, purposeful. He attended therapy religiously, shared notes from sessions. They started couples counseling, raw hours unpacking resentment, betrayal, the slow erosion of their marriage. One session, the therapist asked Naomi, "What do you need to feel safe?" Consistency, she said, and to be seen, not as support, but as equal. Brandon met her gaze. I see you now. I promise. Forgiveness deepened into something tangible. 4 months post-reconciliation, they took a weekend trip, not to Maui or Aspen, but a quiet cabin in Big Sur. No jets, no luxury. Just a rental car drive up the PCH, windows down, ocean wind whipping through. They hiked redwood trails, cooked simple meals over a campfire, talked under stars. That on the second night, sitting by the fire pit, Brandon turned serious. I've been thinking about the house in Holmby Hills. She tensed. What about it? It's too big, too full of old memories. I want to sell it. Start fresh. Somewhere that's ours, not mine. She considered. Where? Santa Monica. Near your office. Or wherever you want. We build it together. Tears pricked her eyes. I'd like that. He pulled her close. And ZAHA, she's gone for good. Blocked. No contact. I deleted everything. I trust you, she said, and meant it. They made love that night. Slow, tender, rediscovering each other without the weight of past hurts. Redemption felt like home. 6 months after the courthouse drama, the pieces aligned and Naomi's microgrid projects exploded. A $100 million grant from the Department of Energy, features in Wired and the LA Times. She spoke at a cleantech summit in San Francisco, Brandon in the audience, applauding louder than anyone. Apex rebounded. The bridge funding led to a successful Series A for a portfolio company in renewable storage. Brandon credited Naomi's influence publicly in a TechCrunch interview. My ex-wife, now my partner again, showed me what real impact looks like. They moved into a modest, by LA standards, home in Santa Monica. Ocean views, a home office for her, a garden they planted together. One evening, as the sun dipped into the Pacific, Brandon led her to the backyard deck. Candles flickered, peonies in vases, echoing their dinner at shutters. That he knelt, not with nerves this time, but quiet certainty. Naomi Carter, he said, pulling out a simple platinum band with a single diamond, smaller than the first, more meaningful. I lost you once. I won't again. Will you marry me? Again. Tears streamed. Yes. He slipped the ring on, beside her mother's pearls, a symbol of new beginnings rooted in cherished past. They remarried quietly on the same beach where they'd reconciled. Shutters on the beach, barefoot in the sand, close friends and family only. Robert gave a toast to second chances and the strength to seize them. Vows exchanged. I promise to see you, to grow with you, to love you through every storm. As the sun set, they danced on the deck, slow, close, waves applauding below. Later, walking hand in hand along the shore, Naomi whispered, "We did it." He kissed her forehead. "We're just getting started." The aftermath brought deeper joys. Joint projects blending Apex's capital with Chin Renewables Tech, powering communities from LA to Detroit. They traveled, not for deals, but for impact, installing panels in Flint, advocating for policy in DC. Old wounds healed into scars, reminders, not pains. Forgiveness became their foundation, redemption, their shared victory. Years later, on anniversaries, they'd return to Van Nuys Airport, not for jets, but to stand on the tarmac where it all turned. "Remember when you landed like a boss?" He'd teased, she'd laugh. "Remember when you finally saw me?" Always the answer. How could I forget? Their story ended not in separation, but in unbreakable reunion. Love recovered, stronger in the mending. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.